Greetings. Welcome to another day of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today is March 26th, and we'll be reading from chapter 9 of the first canto, chapter 9 of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The chapter is entitled Passing Away of Bhismadeva in the Presence of Lord Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Nasta praeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhagavati naistiki. Before reading this beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam, I would first like to offer my respectful obeisances unto my beloved spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtottara Satasi Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and unto my Shiksha Guru, instructing spiritual master, His Divine Grace Nitya Lila Pravishta Ashtottara Satashri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, who has so kindly given us this beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam and spent mostly all his time translating this book. So let us begin. Okay. Sutta uvacha iti bita prajadrohat sarvadharma vivitsaya tato vinashanam pragat yatra deva vrato patat. Sutta Goswami said, being afraid for having killed so many subjects on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Maharaj Yudhishthira went to the scene of the massacre. There, Bhismadeva was lying on a bed of arrows, about to pass away. So here this chapter is going to describe the passing away of grandfather Bhishma, the great Mahajan. At the time, all his brothers followed him on beautiful chariots, drawn by first-class horses decorated with gold ornaments. With them were Vyas and rishis like Dhaumya, the learned priest of the Pandavas, and others. O sage amongst the Brahmanas, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, also followed, seated on a chariot with Arjuna. Thus King Yudhishthira appeared very aristocratic, like Kuvera, surrounded by his companions, the Guyakas. Seeing him, Bhishma, lying on the ground like a demigod fallen from the sky, the Pandava King Yudhishthira, along with his younger brothers and Lord Krishna, bowed down before him. Just to see the chief of the descendants of King Bharat, Bhishma, all the great souls in the universe, namely the rishis amongst the demigods, brahmanas, and kings, all situated in the quality of goodness, were assembled there. All the sages like Parvat Muni, Narad Muni, Domya, Vyas, the incarnation of God, Brihadashva, Bharadwaj, Parusharam, and disciples, Vashishta, Indra Pramada, Trita, Krita Samad, Asita, Kakshivan, Gautama, Atri, Kaushika, and Sudarshan were present. You can just imagine the scene. The great battle of Kurukshetra, where millions and millions of people were slaughtered in 18 days. We know World War II, millions and millions, I think something like, I don't remember, like 8 million people were killed. World War II, maybe more. But it was a long war. This was 18 days war with some of the greatest warriors of all time present. Such a great war. A religious war, though. Took place. After the battlefield, there is grandfather Bhishma lying on a bed of arrows. Bhishma got the benediction that he could die at any time, at his own will. So here he is, lying on the bed of arrows. And all the great sages, including all the 5 Pandava brothers, Yudhishthira, Arjuna, Bhima, Nakula, Sahadev, and even Lord Krishna, comes to pay their respects to the great, valiant warrior. And many others like Shukadev Goswami. Even Shukadev was there, the great reciter of Srimad Bhagavatam. He was also present to offer respects to Bhishma. And other purified souls, Kashyapa and Angiras and others, all accompanied by their respective disciples, arrived there. Bhismadeva, who was the best among the 8 Vasus, received and welcomed all the great and powerful rishis who were assembled there, for he knew perfectly all the religious principles according to time and place. So even though he just fought the great battle of Kurukshetra, and he's lying on a bed of arrows, meaning all these arrows are in his body, still he welcomes everyone and offers respects and blessings accordingly. Lord Sri Krishna is situated in everyone's heart, yet he manifests his transcendental form by his internal potency. This very Lord was sitting before Bhismadeva, and since Bhismadeva knew of his glories, he worshipped him duly. The sons of Maharaj Pandu were sitting silently nearby, overtaken with affection for their dying grandfather. Seeing this, Bhismadeva congratulated them with feeling. There were tears of ecstasy in his eyes, for he was overwhelmed by love and affection. Even though he fought against the Pandavas in the battle, he was always thought of the Pandavas as his children. And he had so much respect and honor for them. Bhismadeva said, "Oh, what terrible sufferings and what terrible injustices you good souls suffer for being the sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you were protected by the Brahmanas, God, and religion. As far as my daughter-in-law Kunti is concerned, upon the great General Pandu's death, she became a widow with many children, and therefore she suffered greatly. And when you were grown up, she suffered a great deal also because of your actions. In my opinion, this is all due to inevitable time, under whose control everyone in every planet is carried, just as the clouds are carried by the wind. Oh, how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time. It is irreversible. Otherwise, how can there be reverses in the presence of King Yudhishthira, the son of the demigod controlling religion? Bhima, the great fighter with a club, and the great bowman Arjuna with his mighty weapon Gandiva. Above all, Even the Lord, Sri Krishna, the direct well-wisher of the Pandavas, was also present. O king, no one can know the plan of the Lord. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered. Right? We do not know what the Lord has in store for us. And here's the Pandavas, who are friends of Lord Krishna. Even they had to undergo so many tribulations. So Bhishma is now remembering this and recognizing this. O best among the descendants of Bharat, Yudhishthir, I maintain, therefore, that all this is within the plan of the Lord. Accepting the inconceivable plan of the Lord, you must follow it. You are now the appointed administrative head, and my Lord, you should now take care of those subjects who are now rendered helpless. This Sri Krishna, now he's going to start addressing Krishna, who's there. This Sri Krishna is no other than the inconceivable original personality of Godhead. He is the first Narayan, the supreme enjoyer, but he is moving amongst the descendants of King Vrishni just like one of us. And he is bewildering us with his self-created energy. O King, Lord Shiva, Narad, the sage amongst the demigods, and Kapila, the incarnation of Godhead, all know very confidentially about his glories through direct contact. O King, that personality whom out of ignorance only you thought to be your maternal cousin, your very dear friend, well-wisher, counselor, messenger, benefactor, is that very supreme personality of Godhead. Being the absolute personality of Godhead, he is present in everyone's heart. He is equally kind to everyone, and he is free from the false ego of differentiation. Therefore, whatever he does is free from material inebriety. He is equibalanced. Yet, despite his being equally kind to everyone, he has graciously come before me while I am ending my life, for I am his unflinching servitor. The personality of God who appears in the mind of the devotee by attentive devotion and meditation and by chanting of the holy name releases the devotee from the bondage of fruitive activity at the time of his quitting the material body. May my Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face, with eyes as red as a rising sun, smiling, kindly await me at that moment when I quit this body. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that four-handed Narayan, because Krishna, when he appeared on this human-like form, he had only two hands. Krishna only has two hands. But in his form as Vishnu or Narayan, he has four hands. So Bhishma wanted to see Krishna in his four-handed form. So we know that the Lord appears to the devotee in the way in which the devotee meditates on him with love. So here Bhishma is saying, I want to see your four-handed form. Sutta Goswami said, Maharaj Yudhishthir, after hearing Bhismadeva speak in that appealing tone, asked him in the presence of all the great rishis about the essential principles of various religious duties. So here, Bhishma's on the bed of arrows, and now Yudhishthir is asking him about Dharma. He's asking him going to ask him some questions. And Bhishma will very beautifully explain everything. And then also he'll express his own personal desire. Present, as we said earlier, was Vyasadeva, who compiled all Vedic literatures, and Narada, his spiritual master. But still, Yudhishthira wanted to hear from Bhismadeva. At Maharaj Yudhishthira's inquiry, Bhismadeva first defined all the classification of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual's qualifications. Varnashram Dharma. Then he systematically, in twofold divisions, described counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. He then explained by divisions acts of charity, the pragmatic activities of a king, and activities for salvation. Then he described the duties of women and devotees, both briefly and extensively. Then he described the occupational duties of different orders and statuses of life, citing instances from history, for he was himself well acquainted with the truth. While Bhismadeva was describing occupational duties, the sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere. This period is desired by mystics who die at their own will. Thereupon, that man who spoke on different subjects with thousands of meanings and who fought on thousands of battlefields and protected thousands of men stopped speaking, and being completely freed from all bondage, withdrew his mind from everything else and fixed his wide open eyes upon the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who stood before him, four-handed, dressed in yellow garments that glistened and shined. It's described that Bhismadeva at that time was around 114 years old. Even though he was 114 years old, he was still one of the most feared warriors and one of the most learned of great personalities. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes many verses, 15 verses, just from Bhagavad Gita, describing that whatever one thinks about at the time of death, that state he will surely attain. I'll read. The subject matter which attracts the dying man becomes the beginning of his next life. Very important information, because at the time of death we are all very fearful. What is going to happen? Where am I going to go? What am I going to become? But here, Srila Prabhupada states, and also Krishna states, the subject matter which attracts the dying person becomes the beginning of his next life. Therefore, if one is absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Lord, he is sure to go back to Godhead without any doubt. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter, 5 through 15. And whoever at the time of death quits his body, remembering me, alone at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me, and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without a doubt. So here's Bhismadeva on the bed of arrows with Krishna present. It's described that everyone on the battlefield who saw Krishna, Partha Sarathi, even though Krishna was the chariot driver of Arjuna, anyone who saw him, even on his side or the enemy's side, they all attained their eternal spiritual body after they were dead. By pure meditation, looking at Lord Sri Krishna, he at once was freed from all material inauspiciousness and was relieved of all bodily pains caused by the arrow wounds. Thus, all the external activities of his senses at once stopped, and he prayed transcendentally to the controller of all living beings while quitting his material body. Bhismadeva said, "Let me now invest my thinking, feeling, and willing, which were so long engaged in different subjects and occupational duties, in the all-powerful Lord Sri Krishna. He is always self-satisfied, but sometimes, being the leader of the devotees, he enjoys transcendental pleasure by descending on the material world, although from him only the material world is created." Sri Krishna is the intimate friend of Arjuna. He has appeared on this earth in his transcendental body, which resembles the bluish color of the tamal tree. His body attracts everyone in the 3 planetary systems, the upper, middle, and lower. May his glittering yellow dress and his lotus face, covered with paintings of sandalwood pulp, be the object of my attraction, and may I not desire any fruitive results. On the battlefield, where Sri Krishna attended Arjuna out of friendship, the flowing hair of Lord Krishna turned ashen due to the dust raised by the hooves of the horses, and because of his labor, beads of sweat wetted his face. All these decorations, intensified by the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows, were enjoyed by him. Let my mind thus go unto Lord Krishna. So the Lord loves to reciprocate with his devotees in whichever way they desire. So Bhismadeva, being a warrior, he wanted to fight Krishna. And on the battle, that day, because Bhishma was always partial to the Pandavas, and Duryodhana, the evil king of the Kauravas side, knew that Bhishma was partial. So Duryodhana was a little bit harassing Bhishma that, oh, you're not fighting to your full capacity. I know that you like the Pandavas, you like the Pandava brothers. Because of his insults, Bhishma said, okay, today I will kill the 5 Pandava brothers. I will kill Arjuna, and either that or I will make Krishna break his promise, because Krishna, he was a chariot driver of Arjuna, and he made a vow in the beginning of the battle that I will not take up any weapon. I will simply drive the chariot for Arjuna. So Bhishma made a vow that on that day he would make Krishna break his vow. And because Krishna took his devotees' vow to be more important than his own vow, he leaped when it was about time that Bhishma was ready to inflict arrows upon Arjuna. Lord Sri Krishna jumped off his chariot and even lost his upper cloth, and he attacked Bhishma with the wheel of a chariot and ultimately killed Bhishma. Wounded Bhishma enough where he could not continue fighting. In obedience to the command of his friend, Lord Sri Krishna entered the arena of the battlefield of Kurukshetra between the soldiers of Arjuna and Duryodhana. And while there, he shortened the lifespans of the opposite party by his merciful glance. This was done simply by his looking at the enemy. Let my mind be fixed upon that Krishna. When Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield, the Lord eradicated his ignorance by delivering transcendental knowledge. His lotus feet always remain the object of my attraction. Fulfilling my desire and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot and took up its wheel and ran towards me hurriedly just like a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, the battle of Kurukshetra was fought on military principles, but at the same time in a sporting spirit, like a friend's fight with another friend. Duryodhana criticized Bhismadeva, alleging that he was reluctant to kill Arjuna because of parental affection. A Kshatriya cannot tolerate insults on the principle of fighting. Bhismadeva therefore promised that the next day he would kill the 5 Pandavas with special weapons made for that purpose. Duryodhana was satisfied, and he kept the arrows with him to be delivered the next day during the fight. By tricks, Arjuna took the arrows from Duryodhana, and Bhismadeva could understand that this was a trick of Lord Krishna. So he took a vow that the next day Krishna would have to take up weapons himself, otherwise his friend Arjuna would die. In the next day's fighting, Bhismadeva fought so violently that both Arjuna and Krishna were in trouble. Arjuna was almost defeated. The situation was so intense that he was about to be killed by Bhismadeva. The very next moment, at that time, Lord Krishna wanted to please his devotee Bhishma by keeping Bhishma's promise, which was more important than his own. Seemingly, he broke his own promise. He promised before the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra that he would remain without weapons and would not use his strength for either of the parties. But to protect Arjuna, he got down from the chariot, took up the wheel of the chariot, and hurriedly rushed at Bhismadeva in an angry mood, as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He dropped his outer cloth in this way, and out of great anger he did not know that he had dropped it. Bhismadeva at once gave up his weapons and stood to be killed by Krishna, his beloved Lord. The fighting of the day was thus ended at that very moment, and Arjuna was saved. Of course, there was no possibility of Arjuna's death because the Lord himself was on the chariot. But because Bhismadeva wanted to see Lord Krishna take up some weapon to save his friend, the Lord created this situation, making Arjuna's death imminent. He stood before Bhismadeva to show him that his promise was fulfilled and that he had taken up the will. Text 38. May he, Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who awards salvation, be my ultimate destination. On the battlefield he charged me, as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows. His shield was scattered, and his body was smeared with blood due to the wounds. At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battle of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death. Let my mind be fixed upon Lord Sri Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Vrindavan, the gopis. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after he disappeared from the rasa dance. So here Bhishma is also not only remembering Partha Sarathi, the chariot driver of Arjuna, but he's also remembering the gopis of Vrindavan. How they, after Krishna left the rasa dance, how the gopis in separation started to imitate the movements and smiles and dancing of Lord Krishna. At the Rajasuya Yagna sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhishthir, there was the greatest assembly of all the elite of the world, the royal order and learned orders. And in that great assembly, Lord Sri Krishna was worshipped by one and all as the most exalted personality of Godhead. This happened during my presence, and I remember the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. Bhishma is remembering the great sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhishthir after he won the battle. He had sent out his victory horse, The victory horse came back unchallenged. All the kings of that time accepted Maharaj Yudhishthira as the rightful king of the world. Now I meditate with full concentration upon that one Lord Sri Krishna, now present before me, because now I have transcended the misconceptions of duality in regard to his presence in everyone's heart, even in the hearts of the mental speculators. He is in everyone's heart. The sun may be perceived differently, but the sun is one. Sutta Goswami said, thus Bhismadeva merged himself in the Supersoul, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, with his mind, speech, sight, and actions, and thus he became silent, and his breathing stopped. Knowing that Bhismadeva had merged into the unlimited eternality of the Supreme Absolute, all present there became silent, like the birds at the end of the day. Therefore, both man and demigods sounded drums in honor, and the honest royal order commenced demonstrations of honor and respect. And from the sky fell showers of flowers. O descendant of Bhrigu, Shaunaka, after performing funeral rituals for the dead body of Bhismadeva, Maharaj Yudhishthira was momentarily overtaken with grief. All the sages then glorified Lord Krishna, who was present there, by confidential Vedic hymns. Then all of them returned to their respective hermitages, bearing always Lord Krishna within their heart. Thereafter Maharaj Yudhishthira at once went to his capital Hastinapur, accompanied by Lord Sri Krishna, and there he consoled his uncle and aunt Gandhari, who was like an ascetic. After this, the great religious king, Maharaj Yudhishthira, executed the royal power in the kingdom strictly according to the codes and royal principles approved by his uncle and confirmed by Lord Sri Krishna. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 9th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Passing Away of Bhismadeva in the Presence of Lord Krishna. So beautiful. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Radhe Radhe Govinda Govinda Radhe 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 Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jai Jai Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jai Jai Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jai Jai. Bolo Shri Vrindavan Bihari Lal ki Jai 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 Shri Radhe Shyam.